Hi, welcome back to Oliver's Rehab series. I'm Bree, and I'm super excited because I finally got the package for the Hoof Armor in today. It was delayed in shipment, like I said in the last video, and it finally came today, actually earlier than they had told me it was coming, so I figured I should just unbox it. I figured why not unbox it and show you guys kind of what this is and explain what it does for the foot, because I've used this successfully in a lot of rehabs in order to avoid either having the horse be full-time in boots or in shoes, because the problem with having something on the foot long-term, especially an enclosed thing like a boot or a shoe, is you can run into fungal issues. So in order to avoid thrush and white line disease and all other types of just nasty stuff that can happen to the foot in an enclosed environment, I really like the Hoof Armor because it's just an alternative hoof protector. So super excited. I'm gonna open this up and then I'll probably go put it on his feet later today. Is technically a chemical hoof hardener that comes in a little glue tube. Sorry, this will be reversed. And when you order it, you actually get the applicator gun. So it's a little bit more expensive when you first buy it because you have to buy the applicator gun and also the mixing tips. So once you've made like the initial investment and you're going to keep using it, you can just buy more tubes of glue and then the mixing tips as needed, which I think is really nice. And the application is pretty easy, so you need to make sure that the hoof is trimmed first to give it the best chance of sticking. So what I'm going to do with Oliver later is I'm just going to rasp his feet gently. I'm not going to take off a lot of material, but just enough to give it like that edge for the material to stick on. And then you clean it really well with a wire brush and then set the applicator up and apply a really thin layer on the hoof. And then using the glove they give you, you spread it on the hoof and then put it in either, you can put cornstarch on it if you're doing it on a hoof or on a stall mat, or you can just throw it directly onto the ground. And what that does is it helps basically seal the bond to the hoof, and then you can also, once that's done, you can brush it back off and apply another layer once it's dry. And what's really cool about the Hoof Armor is that it actually lasts in between trim cycles. So I've had horses where I put it on and I come back 4 to 6 weeks later and it's still on there. And it's really cool because they'll use it during like endurance races and stuff to protect the feet, and obviously endurance racing is one of the most difficult sports on a horse's feet just because of the amount of miles that they're doing. So I just think it's a really cool alternative to other methods of hoof protection because it's the easiest, low maintenance. It's somewhat expensive if you're not a farrier and not like investing in tools already, but I do think it's worth it just to make sure you're protecting the hoof from extra wear in cases like Oliver where their feet are maybe trimmed a little bit too short to have the shoes on, and then you need to protect them as they're transitioning. So I'm really looking forward to getting this on him later today. For you guys, that will be right after this, but anyway, super excited. Okay, so the first step is to hoof pick the hoof really clean and to use a wire brush or something similar to get all of the dirt and like anything lumpy or hard off of the hoof for when we apply the Hoof Armor, because basically it adheres to everything underneath it. So you want to make sure the hoof is as clean as possible. And as you can see, there is a mat underneath his other foot. This isn't for the Hoof Armor application. This is just for his comfort. So I had noticed that he had been extra tender when I was picking up his feet and sort of starting to be a little bit more yanky and stuff. So I give them that hoof mat in order to just help them feel a little bit more comfortable holding their feet up.
And then the next step is they want you to trim the hoof. So I'm just barely taking off the top layer of hoof in order for the hoof armor to stick to it. And just rebalancing him a little bit because he does have a little bit of imbalance in his heels. So I just wanted to make sure that they were even. And also another thing I wanted to point out, he does have some bruising in his white line. You can see that pink line at the tip of his toe. This is usually from laminitis or concussive forces, and I believe it's probably from the concrete that's underneath their stall footing. And I'm actually going to be relocating my horses, so they will be in a different location in the next video for this reason, because when you think about concrete and horses, usually they don't mix. Like if you're a horse person, you know that you probably shouldn't ride your horse on concrete. So we're just going to be moving them. And hopefully the hoof armor took off the edge enough while we were still there, but I just didn't like what I was seeing in my horse's feet. And then that's it for the application of the hoof armor. Super simple. You just put on a thin layer and you rub it on all the way around the hoof, just in all of the cracks and crevices and stuff. And it should be a very thin layer, almost like a lacquer. It can't be too thick or else the layers will actually peel off and then it's not doing you any good for the application. All right, and I also wanted to update you all on the super fast on his hind feet. And you'll see in a moment that this left hind actually has held onto it pretty well. And the fascinating thing about it is that he has been wearing it down, like it's a lot smoother than it was when I applied it. And that's a good thing because I wanted that super fast to prevent wear on his heels, which were already super low. So it's definitely doing the trick. Unfortunately, he lost half of the super fast on his right hind, but I felt like it was all right because it was on the heel that was already higher. So I actually didn't apply it again. I didn't get any footage of that other foot, but it's has seemed like he has done really well and his angles are already improving immensely just having the shoes off and having like the super fast to just give him that extra little bit of lift in his heels, which was really like the goal with the super fast, but I had never used it in this application. So I'm just super grateful that it is doing the trick. All right, this is same day after Hoof Armor application. I did do it on all four. I wasn't that optimistic about it staying on the hinds because of the super fast, and I couldn't get in there and clean out as well as I could on a hoof without the super fast. But as you can see, he's already striding out a lot better than he was last week. And I still feel like he's tender, and that's kind of to be expected during a hoof rehab transition, but already loads better than he was before the hoof armor. And I feel like, unfortunately, that concrete did thin his soles even more than they already were. And I wasn't super aware of how much concrete there was underneath the stalls. So once I figured that out, I was like, just considering all different types of hoof protection and like just starting with the hoof armor to help take the edge off was really helpful because the problem with keeping like either boots or shoes, like glue on shoes on, is that they can create a more moist environment for the hoof. And unfortunately, that is not a good thing in a hoof rehab, especially with a thin sole, because what happens when the hoof is super moist is that the sole becomes very easy to exfoliate. So, unfortunately, I didn't think that those were a good option at the time, like at this time. So that's why we did the hoof armor. And I was really pleased with the results. Like I felt like, yes, he's still looking pretty tender on his fronts, but his stride lengths increased a lot once I put it on. And he seemed a lot more willing to work with me because what I had been noticing was that he started to become less willing to pick his feet up and also less willing to like pay attention to me during training sessions and like just overall handling sessions. And a lot of the time that is due to hoof tenderness. So that's something to look out for if you are going through a barefoot transition or even just noticing different things with your horse, like if they're starting to become more reluctant, the hoof health and balance is something you might want to look into, because obviously if you ever had painful feet, you understand that like it's not very fun to do anything to stand with your hooves uncomfortable. So here's an update on his posture. I actually did get to do a little bodywork session on him because I was noticing a lot of tension through his pelvis, especially in his lower back. So this is the after, and you can see he's already choosing to stand differently, and the muscling through his pelvis and lower back looked a lot better. It was actually a really cool session. He's super fun and super easy to engage with. So I've been having a good time just playing with him. And I feel like he really enjoys the body work because it gives him a chance to just be in his body and let go of things that he's been holding on for a really long time. And I also wanted to make the point that there's no bad posture, just the one that you spend the most time in. So he tends to spend the most time in the camped under posture, especially with his hind legs. So I just want to support him in being able to make those changes and to move through them fluidly. So here is a few days after the Hoof Armor application. And this was when I had noticed that his soles were really starting to get thinner. And my indication of that is actually when it starts to give to thumb pressure at the tip of the frog, which is really not good. So I am really looking forward to getting them moved into a different environment that will help me to support his body better and also my mare's. So um I also wanted to highlight here how much better he was able to extend his head and neck out as he's moving. And I kind of attribute this to what I'm doing right here. So I have started to do little thoracic sling work exercises. I'm basically asking him to shift back, and he should get a little bit taller at his withers and also be able to lift his sternum and engage his front end a little bit better. And I feel like this has been super helpful for my girls, but also for horses that have had a difficult time picking up their front legs when I'm working with them, like as a hoof care provider. Because if they can't lift all of their weight, not all of their weight, most of their weight off of their front end, whether you're doing something with them like picking their feet up or riding them or asking them to perform, like going over a jump, doing dressage, like lots of like performance based things, most of their weight is on their front end. So when you add yourself as a rider and like your tack and your equipment, that puts even more weight on their front end, and they need to be able to lift through their chests and up through their back in order to protect their bodies from overuse. And luckily, he's come around immensely. Like, I'm so proud of him in these clips. Like, he's just got it down. And as you can see right there, like, he really lifts up his belly and lifts up his back. And I'm just really looking forward to how that will help with the hoof rehab, because it can help him kind of learn to use his body independently instead of just slamming himself down into the ground, into his sore feet. And I just like, I really believe in a holistic approach to the hoof rehab because it really makes a difference. All of the variables and puzzle pieces that go along with a hoof rehab are all important and they all should be focused on. So, this is all I have for you today. I really hope that you enjoyed this episode, and thank you so much for coming and supporting and just watching as we go through this journey. It's been really fun to put all these videos together to like just share all of my expertise and kind of like his journey and his path to recovery, because it's so healing to be able to, I don't know, be witnessed. And I just appreciate that you guys have done that for both Oliver and myself. So anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week.